So, for those who just tuned in, I am Rustin Rose with Metal Nation, and today we are joined by Ms. Sarah Teets of MindMaze. Yes, I broke out the shirt, found it.
Awesome, love it.
so aside from the COVID and everything else that's going on, how are you doing?
Pretty good. It's been, again, with this situation, it's been challenging because it has affected us as a band. We haven't even all been together in a room to even practice in over a month at this point. So that's been weird because we do all live pretty close to each other, and we regularly have band practice once a week and see each other, a lot. And I mean, Jeff and I live in the same house, so we've still been seeing each other, obviously, but the whole band hasn't been getting together. So that's been a little bit weird at this point. I kind of miss even just getting together with them to hang out. Like, I miss hanging out with them and doing stuff. Obviously, the music stuff too, but it's affected us like practice wise, and it's also affected us. Our engineer Brian is a really immunocompromised person, so
Right.
he struggled with a lot of health issues over the years, but he's one of those people that like absolutely can't take the risk of coming in contact with this because like he'd be in serious trouble if he did. So he hasn't been taking clients, so we haven't been able to go to the studio as either. So that's been challenging because we've been trying to do what we can, by just communicating online and having him work on stuff on his own. But yeah, it's been challenging in all angles, even without like my work situation or Jeff's work situation. Us doing stuff as a band has been a bit challenging as well, but we've been trying to make the best of it. And with certain things, I've had a little bit more time to kind of do more things like graphic design work and stuff like that I don't always have so much time. So it hasn't all been negative.
Well, and there's been other stuff for you too. I just spoke with our pal Mike LaPond yesterday, and you are making a cameo, of course, on the new album, Whore of Babylon, on the track Champion. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so obviously Mike's one of those people that when he contacts me, I'm like, yeah, definitely want to do that. Like, there's not even a question. I mean, I love Mike. He's a great guy, and obviously he's helped us out in the past with MindMaze. So, when he contacted me, I definitely wanted to do it. And yeah, it's like kind of the ballad of the album, which, from like at first when he contacted me, I was kind of not really sure what to expect, but then I listened to the song, and it's a ballad, but it's kind of like I don't want to be like power ballad because that's he calls it that. So I don't know why I'm like afraid to call it that, but like when people say power ballad, they think like Bon Jovi or something, and it's definitely not that, but it is a song that's like a tribute to like the troops and our armed forces and heroes from like the past that have like, given their lives for our freedom and everything like that. So it's a really cool song, and that was a big weight on my shoulders having that's like a pretty big subject matter there. Like, you
Right.
don't want to come in and screw up the song that's like about, the troops and, that kind of thing. So there was pressure there, but he had me come out to Mike Romeo's studio, and he was really, really easy to work with, and it was just a great experience recording everything. And then I did a flute part as well,
Right. Right.
so that was fun. So yeah, I'm really excited for it to actually come out and for more people to hear that song because it was a lot of fun and it was easy to work with them for sure.
Yeah, and it was supposed to come out this month, but now it's been pushed back a month. Thank you, COVID. So,
Yeah,
but
everything's pushed back.
yeah. This I was realizing the other day, probably because I think you guys must have posted something and it popped up on my feed. 3-year anniversary of Resolve. I mean, can you believe it's been
Yeah.
that long?
Oh God. I mean, in ways, say that I can't imagine that it's been that long, but in other ways, I'm like, oh my God, it's only been 3 years. Like,
Right.
I mean, particularly when it comes to us working on new music, I feel like we've been in a very like weird, stagnant kind of like spinning our wheels phase for a while in between stuff. And you know, I kind of just want to get stuff out there so bad. But I mean, it's funny, like with the first two albums, when if I sit down and listen to them now, I especially Mask of Lies, because it was the first one that we did, and everybody I think always has the tendency to re-listen to things that they did and be like, oh, I changed this and this. Like with Resolve, like I actually sat down and listened to it the other day. I mean, part of it was like a joint thing, because we're actually working on doing two of the songs that we haven't been playing live off Resolve, like in the future live. We've been trying to work on doing Fight the Future and Drown Me. So I actually had to go back and listen to the album, because I had to like listen to those songs, because it's been so long, and since we haven't been playing them live, I literally was like, I don't even know how this goes anymore. So I had to listen to it, and even just listening back to it now, I'm still just immensely proud of it. Like, you know, it took a lot for us to make that album, and definitely wasn't an easy process, but I do feel like the end result is pretty much exactly what we wanted it to be. And, you know, looking back on it now after 3 years, I I wouldn't have done it differently, and I'm still really proud of it. So that's good.
There's a lot to be proud of. That was actually the question I was going to ask you, is how the album looked to you 3 years in the rear view mirror, but you just segued right into that nicely. So
I just
let,
read your mind.
right. So let's talk about Road to Madness. You guys dropped the bomb on everybody yesterday. Your cover of Queensryche's Road to Madness from their Warning album. And man, that doing that song is no small feat. And you guys just knocked it out of the park.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, when, you know, we got asked to cover that, because it came about as we ran a Kickstarter project. This is a few projects ago. I honestly don't even remember which one it originated on. Um, yes, and I love that. I made that cover with Jeff had the idea of like, let's do like, because like Dream Theater has done stuff like that in the past, where it's like an homage, or you've seen other bands that do an homage to the thing they're covering by doing their version of like the artwork or something. And he had that idea. He's like, do you think you could make this a thing? And I was like, I don't know. And then it was funny. I was like, I think I can, but it'll take me really long. But I just kind of started working on it, and within a day I had the whole thing finished, because I just really enjoyed doing it so much that I just kind of kept doing it and doing it. And before I realized it, I was working on it for like 6 hours and didn't even realize it. But yeah, when he first told us like, this is a song I want you to cover, I was like, oh God. Because it is really long. It's an epic. There's so many parts to it. And I mean, naturally anything Queensryche is challenging, just in the nature of the fact that it's Queensryche. Jeff Tate is one of the greatest metal singers of all time. So anything that he sang on, that's intimidating as is. And I mean, I guess I must like to torture myself, because then after we committed to do this cover, then I joined a Queensryche tribute band. So, you know, I must really enjoy that. But yeah, it seemed like it was intimidating, but I think it was a good challenge for us. Some of the parts in that are kind of things that we hadn't really explored, trying to do stuff like that in some of our original music before. And I think it gave us the ability to try that out. And like, I love the way the interlude section, the quiet section came out. We put like flute and piccolo, and Jeff did like guitar texture, and it just, it came out really well. And I think that kind of gave us some ideas for like how we can incorporate stuff like that in things that we do in the future.
So for you guys, you know, whether you personally as a vocalist or just putting the song together, what was the most challenging aspect of it? Because that song is a beast.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like the vocals in and of itself was challenging, but Jeff definitely had the most challenging, you know, parts, mainly because there were just so many layers of guitars that needed to go in there, but Jeff also played the drums on that. So, I mean, I think some people know that Jeff played the drums on like half of Resolve, but he also played the drums on this because we committed to do it like way back when, and it was like our drummer Mark, and he would be totally supportive of me saying this to everyone. He really hates playing cover songs. like he just does. He doesn't. He's like, I don't want to really spend my time learning other people's music. I want to like create music, and a lot of people are like that. I've known other people that are like that. For me as a singer, I mean, I just love singing anything,
Right.
but you know, Jeff and I both have we just love to play songs that we enjoy, but some people don't, and he's kind of one of those people. So, you know, we have to kind of ration the amount of things that we make him learn. And after we kind of forced a whole Wasp tribute set on him, and then the whole Heaven and Hell album in its entirety, I kind of was like, maybe we shouldn't force Mark to do this song too. So yeah, so Jeff had to play the drums on it as well. So he had a lot of stuff to do on it. So yeah, his job was a lot more challenging than mine in that regard.
I'm still waiting for you guys to do a full like Dio era Sabbath like tribute thing.
I would love that. I mean, we've talked about doing like, you know, Dio covers, like Dio solo stuff, or like actually recording some Dio Sabbath song, but a lot of them, it's like, you know, there's a million versions of, you know, Neon Nights, and it's funny, Queensryche actually recorded a version of that.
Right.
I've been trying to get the tribute band to do it because, like, hey, I was like, I already know that one, and Queensryche covered it, so it's authentic. But you know, there's a million versions of Neon Nights. There's a million versions of Die Young. I know I've heard versions of Children of the Sea. So it's kind of like challenging to find a song that I feel like people haven't covered a bunch of times, because I can say that, like, when it comes to us choosing songs we actually go to record, we try to stick to things that we know there aren't like super obvious versions. Like if I can sit here and be like, oh, Queensryche covered that, and Primal Fear did a version of that, and you know, whatever. If I can rattle off like 5 major bands that I know versions of, we try to stay away from that, because, you know, then you're kind of just doing something that people already did. And like, yeah, you can put your own, everybody kind of puts their own spin on it, but I still would rather pick like a more obscure song. Like the fan voted cover song that we put out as a Kickstarter exclusive track that we haven't released publicly is a version of Iron Maiden's Deja Vu.
Right.
So that's like a more obscure track that it's like, you know, it's not like, oh, hey, here's our cover of Wasted Years, you know? So like, I love those songs. And we do some stuff like that live. Like, I think there's kind of a difference between recording a cover of something and then just like playing it live. But we've talked about it. We have like this whole list of songs that we're just like, we want to record this just for ourselves. And, you know, maybe eventually we'll get to a Dio era Sabbath song.
I'm sure you probably saw it too. Mary Zimmer from Helion Prime dropped that video that she did with her friends at NAMM this year of We're Stars. And I'm like, how cool would it be, especially if you did it with all female vocalists, to do a rendition of that where you get like you and Nina and all the other people, you know, and then of course Jeff can have fun with all the guitar parts and getting other people involved. But that would be pretty cool, because I know she had to put that together at NAMM, so she didn't have quite the time frame to really do it the way she probably would have wanted to. But boy, you guys could do something magical with that. But Road to Madness, though. Yeah.
It's funny. We actually talked about, like, Jeff and I have been wanting to do a professional cover version of We're Stars for years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, like, it's literally something we've been wanting to do for forever. And I mean, then like, well, I saw her version just came out, and then I just saw another version that I passed today.
Oh, really?
That's like Long Island metal scene people like did one. And I'm just like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't do it now, because like everybody did it. But like the thing is, like, all those versions, I feel like it was for a purpose. Like, you know, like Mary did hers at NAMM, and it was like a tribute to Ronnie James Dio's like death anniversary and everything. And like, you know, they kind of did it like it's really impressive and awesome for the way that they did it, and the fact that they obviously kind of had to move quickly and do everything fast. And, it came out really well. But like same thing with the other version I just saw. You can tell it was like a fast sort of thing,
Right.
and I'm like, we want to do like really like spend time in the studio and like go track down all the right guest people to sing all these parts, and get a bunch of guitarists to do solos and
All
stuff like
right.
that. So I don't know, maybe someday we'll actually do it, but I feel like I have no choice right now but to just be like, not now.
Jeff will probably lose his mind anyway because he's such a perfectionist with that. He wants to get so many things involved and all the nuances and whatnot. But before we jump off of Road to Madness, I gotta say, even though you definitively nailed the whole Queensryche vibe, it definitely still sounds like signature MindMaze. I mean, I was just listening to it. I'm like, this rolls right in with anything that you guys do that's your original material.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, in a sense, I kind of feel like it shows how much of a maybe subtle or not so subtle influence Queensryche has been on just a lot of our music and how we write things, and Jeff's guitar work and stuff like that. I, sometimes you don't really notice those things, but then after I look back after like 7 years worth of making music or whatever, and I'm like, okay, like this is totally an influence. Like I get it. Like when we went to go do the Heaven and Hell tribute set, sometimes you think like at a certain point I kind of just got bored with being like, yeah, Bruce Dickinson and Dio were my influences, because like everybody says that, and it's like, I'm like, I have to be original and have obscure people that I list. And but then I actually was, when I was working on doing that, I'm like, no, seriously, Dio is a huge influence on a lot of the way that I sing a lot of things. So same thing with this. It was just, it kind of comes out subtly that, Queensryche was a big influence on us. And at a time that I feel like really shaped our musical development, as far as like, I was obsessed with Queensryche. Like seriously, I almost posted it on Facebook the other day, but I found a little doodle thing that I had from high school that was like all little mini graphics and drawings that had to do with Queensryche songs, and I was just obsessed with them when I was in high school. So, that was right at the time that Jeff and I first started playing music together and decided to form a band and do all that. So I think it was a matter of it being, influential at a really important time. But yeah, we kind of, with all the covers we do, we kind of try to, like, I specifically know that I wanted to get a good amount of like the expressive stuff that Tate adds in there, but I didn't want to just completely copy it, because it would, like, Tate is like very dramatic and really over the top, and it's awesome, but like if you just try to imitate that 100%, it starts to just sound silly, and especially
Right.
for me, because like I don't normally sing like that. So, I tried to keep a good amount of it in there, but still make it sound a little bit more like something that I would have sung, like my own vocal melodies and stuff.
Well, it turned out amazing, and Road to Madness is almost sort of a metaphor for you guys for the last few years, because you guys had planned to do this EP come out in like 2018, and there's just been a whole lot of stuff going on. Some good, a lot of bad, some struggles and everything. And you shared a little bit with fans through Kickstarter, but tell us a little bit about the journey and how you guys are sort of coming out of that now.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really kind of wanted to like go and do some more interviews so I could kind of be more public about this, because yeah, we share a lot of stuff on Kickstarter, and like we've gone live on Facebook and we've explained a lot of stuff that way as well. Um, but not everybody sees all that stuff with all social media. It's just hard. Like the algorithms are weird and the timing has to be right, and you just don't know. So the more ways that I can kind of try to get it out there, I think that'll help. But yeah, I think the main parts that really played into this was just a lot of bad luck from a personal like perspective. Like I said, our engineer Brian, has struggled a lot with like health issues, like, and pretty severe things that have had him end up being hospitalized for portions of time over the past couple of years. So that's been something that's played into it. At one point he had his dog, like, that he was with him for forever, passed away, and I was dealing with my cat Meatball, that I'm sure everybody saw online about, the one that I was taking to try to get like cancer treatments and everything. That was something, like, our pets being sick, and then that played into it. So it was a lot of like bad luck with just personal things that went wrong with our lives. And then another like main thing that really went into it was just money. Because yes, we ran a Kickstarter project for the EP, but I think the thing is, like, we didn't really realize at the time how much money we had spent doing things like, touring in support of Resolve. Like, we did a full US tour with Serenity and Arcona in 2017. And we didn't lose like a lot of money doing that, but we still we still lost some. And then in 2018 we did another tour on our own that was like a Midwest kind of tour, No Rest in the Midwest. And again, while it wasn't like a failure and we had a great time, and like most of the shows were what I would consider like fairly successful, it wasn't like we knocked it out of the park and like all the shows were packed and we made all this money and we sold all this merch. So it was like we kind of did a whole bunch of stuff that I don't think we really realized at the time how much money we'd spent and how much debt we'd accrued like over this time. And when we ran that Kickstarter and then actually had to kind of think about paying off the debt for that stuff, we're like, oh crap, we don't have any money. And like, we've also done other things over the years, like, we always want to get new merchandise, and I love getting merchandise. I mean, probably because I'm like a graphic design person and the visual stuff and all that. Like, merchandise is aesthetically pleasing to me and I love it. So over the years we'll be like, oh, we haven't gotten a new t-shirt for a while, let's get one. Or one thing that we did since that time is we got hoodies made. And we ended up getting a lot, so we wouldn't have to get them like remade at some point, and we wouldn't run out of them right away. But what happens when you buy a bunch of stuff in bulk and then end up not going on tour or having anywhere to really sell it in volume is you end up sitting on it. And
Right.
it's like then we'd be going to shows and being like, somehow mentally in your mind you think of all the money that you're making on merch sales as being like profit, because you spent that money to get the stuff made 2 years ago. It's like in the back of my mind, we just kind of started to forget about where the money was spent and how much money was spent. And, admittedly, I'm not like the greatest person at keeping records of those things. I have no interest in being like some kind of business person. And Jeff and I both, like, Jeff's better at that than me with like keeping logs of things and stuff. But even if you have it on paper, sometimes I think after a certain amount of time passes, you just like, it gets put out of your mind. Then you go and play these shows and you're like, oh cool, we made all this money, but like we didn't, because half of it really still just went to pay off something we had gotten in the past that we didn't sell all of yet.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just like we came to a realization, like, over this process since we started making this EP, that we're like, we really need to stop spending money. Like, I love merch, but like, we're gonna have to hold off on that until we really have a new product and something that we can really push. And like, we kind of have to try to stop, like, we always want to play shows and we always want to tour and we love doing that. Like, for me personally, like, playing live is like probably my favorite thing about doing this. So I always want to do that. But we're like, we kind of have to cool it for a minute and make sure that every show that we play or these like little runs of dates that we do are in areas that we know that we can be successful playing the shows, that we're not taking a big risk, that we know we're not going to come home and be like, oh, we lost $500, because we really can't afford to do that. So we kind of just had to realize a few things about how much money we were spending and refocus and everything. And then naturally those kind of situations, are difficult mentally for you as well, because there's always this aspect of it where you kind of feel like, oh man, like we haven't been succeeding or something. Like, you know, when you have to retool and like kind of like put the brakes on with everything you want to do, you're like, you know, I feel like I'm not succeeding at this. So mental struggles were definitely, there was definitely some moments where like we're like, yeah, I can't act like I was super motivated to keep going. um but those always pass, and you know, I still love doing this, so we still came around to wanting to move forward. But I think the thing about all this is that the new music that we have made, the stuff for the EP, I absolutely love. And I literally can't wait to get the stuff out. So, um, right now it's just kind of up in the air. Again, I had 2 sessions in the studio scheduled for the beginning of March. Brian ended up getting sick, and then the whole coronavirus thing happened. And no one wanted to take the risk of getting, you know, him sick, so we haven't been able to go. So I had like probably had have maybe 2 sessions worth of stuff before the EP is finished. But you know, over this time period, we also talked about, we've been trying to talk about using the EP like as like the taking the finished product, like the finished mixed versions of the songs, and submitting them to bigger labels, submitting
Right.
them to management, submitting them to other, you know, people that can help us as far as the big picture goes with our career. Like, I love working with Inner Wound, and I love our relationship with them. It's a very, you know, we have a lot of control, and there's no bullshit in that relationship. Like Emil is a great guy, and you know, it's been very easy to work with him. But you know, they're not the biggest of labels. So as far as like a career, you know, trajectory goes, that's kind of another thing we've been talking about over these past couple years, that we're at a crossroads sort of where we kind of want to just go all in, put all our resources in, try to get, you know, as big as we can to get this out to as many people as we can. Um, because I think we're really at a point where everything that we've built so far, if we kind of go and throw all our resources in the direction of trying to make it bigger, I think now is really the time. And also, a lot of the material that we've been writing lately is, it's always scary to be like, it's different, but it is kind of different. um like very different from Resolve, in the fact that all the stuff that we wrote for the EP is much more like concise single song oriented things. There aren't any like I'm sure if for our next full length album there will be like longer songs and progressive
Right.
stuff and whatever, but everything that we had for this EP was more like hard rock influenced, more like kind of had a that like melodic rock influence. Like obviously I love like bands like Eclipse, and I'm wearing a Heat t-shirt, so like we love that. That's like my thing that I love. So we kind of funneled more of that into this new material, and there's stuff that's kind of like, you know, got like almost Deep Purple-esque kind of like riffs in it, and like it's just not at all the vibe of like Resolve. It's much more straightforward, much more to the point. And we kind of figured if there's any sort of material that we have that we've been doing that could be easily pushed along from a more kind of commercial aspect of things, this is it. So yeah, so that was like an immensely long answer, but this is a very long process, and this whole thing is like, it's killing me at this point, because I just want to get this stuff out there, but it's just, you know, you don't want to make the wrong decision and just kind of rush things. But I can say that, you know, we're trying to do everything we can, like with Brian, like just emailing and having him work on stuff from what he can. And uh we do have plans. It is in the process of being mixed. We have plans to release an original single digitally as well, something that was going to be on the EP. That, well, because that's the other part of this, is like this EP could end up turning into a full-length album. So in that sense, that'll be good for people, because anybody that contributed to the project and was like, oh, I'm getting like a 5-song EP, if you get a whole album, that'll be awesome. That'll be awesome instead.
Thank you for waiting.
Yeah, I'm like, at least it'll be worth the wait. But we kind of just want to get something out there like soon, so people, because I just feel bad for how long they've been waiting. So we are in the process of mixing and like finalizing a new single that's an original song. But that's also why we kind of released Roads to Madness publicly, because it's just another thing that we can kind of get out there now and just kind of be like, hey, we still exist.
Well, you had hinted a while back that you had a special guest that was going to appear on what was going to be the title track. Of course, we don't know what the title is yet or who the special guest was. Is there anything you can illuminate about the music or what's going to be on the EP beyond, or the album beyond what we already know?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to give the name of the special guest, but I can kind of give some indication of, well, it's funny because the person we ended up getting isn't, in my opinion, very similar to the person but we were trying to get. We really, like, when we wrote this song, it's a much more like kind of straightforward traditional metal, kind of melodic metal song. It's really heavy, and it's weird, like most of the song is really heavy, but then like the chorus is super melodic, and we really wanted John Bush, like, from Armored Saint,
Right.
like that, because of how like heavy and intense like the verse was. We really wanted somebody with a more like kind of rough and gritty voice. What's funny is, I will say this much, we ended up going with a female singer as the guest, but that still holds true. Like, definitely compared to my voice, this person has a much kind of rougher, like raspier voice, but it worked out really well, because I think her voices like turned out to blend really well. And yeah, it came out, I don't want to say better than I expected, but that's one of the songs that we're sort of stuck at right now, is because the guest singer, like, she recorded a whole bunch of backing vocals for us, which I didn't even ask for that. So it was actually awesome, because I'm like, oh, hey, here's a whole bunch of backing vocals. And it was like ideas that she had for stuff that like I probably wouldn't have necessarily thought to put that there. So it was kind of cool too, because it gave some ideas for like layers of backing vocals. But Jeff and I haven't been able to get in the studio we want to record like our own voices on that as well, so it doesn't just sound like, here's like this backing vocal sound that's like nothing like anything else on the whole like EP or whatever, because it's somebody else.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we have to try to do yet. But yeah, the song's like a weird mixture of being really heavy and really melodic at the same time. But yes, there's a guest female singer on it, so I can I'll go that far as to say that. And yeah, the title track of the whole thing is, it's when people hear it, they're just gonna laugh, because it's just gonna be so appropriate.
Not, is there anything else going on with you or MindMaze that we sort of need to be aware of, or it's in the pipeline?
It's because of the whole coronavirus situation, not really, but we still, at this point in time, still have 2 festivals that we're supposed to play this year that have yet to be canceled. But I think every single day I pass another post in like this Prog Power USA group that's like, oh my God, is the festival going to be canceled? And like, it's so annoying, honestly. I almost like muted this group, because I'm like, I have so much anxiety over that. Like we've wanted to play Prog Power USA for so long. It's, the premier festival of progressive and power metal music in the US, and not that many US based bands even get asked to play. So it was a huge honor for us to get asked, and something we've wanted to do for forever. And now it's just kind of sitting here in limbo. We don't know, and there is a decent chance that it could get canceled. And you know, then there's all the logistics with that. And so yeah, I'm like, that situation gives me anxiety. So passing people talking about it getting canceled all day, not helpful. But you know, we had that, and then we also have Mad with Power that's supposed to be in Madison, Wisconsin in August. And I mean, if I had to guess, I'd assume that probably has a better chance of still happening than Prague Power, because it's a smaller venue, it's a smaller thing. There's and all the bands, like none of the bands that are playing Mad with Power are from Europe or anything. So there's a lot less logistics that have to go into that. Not that there aren't things that have to go into it. And Ty from Lords of the Trident, who organizes the festival, he has done an absolutely great job with everything. So I really hope we get to play that one, because I think it'll be awesome. But yeah, so we have those two things we're supposed to do. And then other than that, yeah, we have like a private event that we're doing in September, Surbaugh Acres, that we've done several times before. And Tim Surbaugh is a really awesome supporter of ours. And he always put this event is kind of like a big picnic metal barbecue thing. And it kind of started out with him really wanting a Sound of Thunder to play at his house. And that was where it all came from, is like him just getting them to come play at his house. And then, you know, over the past couple years, he actually sort of turned it into more of an event.
Right.
And this will be our third time playing Surbaugh Acres. And then I performed there 2 years ago with the band Shocker from Chicago, because they had just lost their singer. But yeah, it's a really fun event, and you know, a great time. And we just go eat barbecue and hang out, and you know, it's very low key. So we usually use that event as like a way to play, like, you know, songs that we are new, or songs that we're trying out, or songs that like just random covers. And you know, when Neil Peart died, we planned out this whole really awesome like Rush cover break in the middle of one of our songs that we were like so excited to play, like in the two shows we had in March. And then they got canceled. And it's like, now it's just been like sitting. So I'm like, we're still kind of dying to use that somehow. But yeah, aside from that, we probably aren't going to do, like, other than the couple things that are already planned, I doubt we'll really do much of anything for the rest of the year, just because when all this, you know, stuff clears up and all the restrictions start being lifted, like, everybody's going to be trying to reschedule everything.
Right.
And to be honest with you, like, October and November are already kind of packed, just based on from people that have rescheduled things that were supposed to happen in May, like, already. So I know, like, Jeff has a bunch of shows that got rescheduled with Denim and Leather. And I mean, I didn't have that many to begin with, but Screaming in Digital has a show that's scheduled for October 17th, which is my birthday. So hopefully that's a good show. But yeah, we had a couple other things that are either got canceled or I suspect will. There's still one more show in June that's kind of up in the air, but I just kind of feel like between all the tours being rescheduled and our other bands rescheduling the shows that we already had, it's like, it's just going to be a nightmare to try to schedule anything. So we're probably just going to consider like 2020 a wash as far as playing goes. Like, I'm not ruling out something, not necessarily local, but within like a couple hours from here. We might play something regionally, like before the end of the year, but we're just not planning on doing anything bigger than that. And whatever touring we want to do, we're probably just going to plan for next year. And I think that'll work out in the long run anyway, because at this point, you know, optimistically, I'd like to say that we'll have, you know, either the EP or another album out like by the end of the year. That's the goal right now, but that's just dependent on so many factors that, like, it's hard for me to really commit to any certain time, because I really don't know what could happen with this whole situation. So
Right.
um that's the goal, and then that would make sense, because if we put something out like later this year, then we could tour on in support of it in 2021, and that would work out. So I think, loosely that's our goal at this point, but the main thing is kind of just going to be to try to work on finishing and doing what we can with new music. And I know we're planning on filming another actual video, so um those are all things that I think are going to be the things that take priority. So they're more like behind the scenes things, and not as fun as playing live shows, but you know,
I think that's the
it's
hard part is you always want to play live. That's the thing. You live for being on stage. But for you guys, the music's the most important part. And in this day and age, the best way to get it out there is to create the music and use social media, videos, stuff like that, just to push it out there. And then the touring comes where it does. But the touring's so damn expensive. So,
yeah, that was like I think the rough part right now is like I had really been trying and pushing and trying to get the wheels in motion to get us to Europe next year. But now I have a feeling that's going to fall through, because every festival and everything is just going to roll over their lineups that they had for this year. So it's going to be really hard for us to get on anything, because these like all the festivals and everything already had everything set. So, we have been in talks with another band from the UK that we were talking about possibly doing something with next fall, but again, yeah, going to Europe is like a massive undertaking and a very expensive one. And I mean, we've come to terms with the fact that it's something we really want and really need to do, but and like it's going to require us to just personally, pay for some of our own expenses, and we're cool with that. But still, like, it's the money still has to make sense somewhat, so we're not just spending $20,000 and that and not getting any of it back. So yeah, because like that going to Europe has been like a long-term goal for a few years now, but it's just so hard. Like you got kind of it takes a long time to like build relationships with people and get a rapport enough that like these people want to actually go through the trouble of bringing you from the US. And yeah, there's just so much that goes into it. So we've kind of been casually working on it for a while. And I mean, whenever it happens, it happens. It's not, we had plans for it to be next year, but at this point, whatever. It'll probably end up being the next year, but as long
just
as it
need to get
happens.
through 2020 and be done with it. Put it as they
Yes,
say in
exactly.
hindsight.
Yes, exactly. If this just year could just,
Right. All right. So just for fun, before we get out the door, what is the most underrated hard rock band, and why is it Y&T?
No, I mean, Y&T like is actually a great choice for that. um and I mean, I'm always like, my go-to for a band that I defend from that's like a hard rock band is Winger, and everybody knows that I love Winger because of whatever. But and I sang with Kip, and that was the best experience of my life and whatever. But you know, Winger is a band that particularly gets a bad rap because of like the time that they came out, and it's like, yeah, everything was super glammy, and you know, their like Kip's image was very like pretty, and people thought it was lame. And admittedly, I didn't want to give them any credit for a long time, because the only thing I'd really heard was like 17, and I hated that song so much that I'm like, this band can't possibly be good. But I had a friend that was a Winger fan, and he needed a ride to, they were playing at this venue that's near here, Penns Peak, and they were playing with, who were they playing with? Firehouse. It was Winger and Firehouse. And he's like, he wanted a ride to the show, and I'm like, well, I got nothing better to do, and Penns Peak is a nice venue, so they have a snack stand there, so even if this is a horrible concert, I can just eat food and sit out on the patio and whatever. And So I went, and I ended up just being like blown away because I realized I was like, oh my God, like this band is so much more than that song. Like, and so much, they're so talented and they're just capable of so much. Like, they sounded so good live. And I'm a real sucker. And this is why a band like Y&T is also great. Is like, I'm just such a sucker for bands that are really good live and play live, you know, because I mean, we adopted the whole slogan, make live music live again. And, you know, we live by that. Like, we're so anti backing tracks and stuff like that. And I mean, whatever. Like, I know there are bands that need to use that stuff for whatever reason. And I'm not really harshly judging anyone, but my favorite kind of live bands are the ones that play 100% live. And I especially lately I've been so inspired by bands like Kansas and Styx and stuff like from the 70s, that like those guys were just crazy, and they like everyone in the band sang and they all did all these different things. And you know, we've really tried to incorporate that a lot in our live show as well. But yeah, Winger was very much like that, and they just sounded so good and they were so tight. And you know, yeah, Y&T's like that as well. It's just like when you see them, you're like, wow, that sounds so good. And like, it's definitely still only like 4 people or whatever. So um yeah, and Dave's voice like still sounds amazing. And I mean, I would say like Kip's voice still sounds really great too. Like, Kip's not a singer that I've really can, as much as I love him, like I never really was like he's an amazing singer. But like sometimes when I listen to some of their albums, I'm like, he actually is really awesome, and he still sounds really good now. And that's a struggle for a lot of those guys from that
Right.
era and those kinds of bands, is keeping your voice like for all those years. And unfortunately, some of it has nothing to do with anything they did. It's just kind of purely genetics. But
Right.
um yeah, like
But
they just
Meniketti and Biff Byford both still sound
yes, Biff is a
fantastic.
great one too. Like, and I mean, my ultimate, like, how the heck does this guy still sound this good? Well, I mean, I just mentioned Styx. Like, Dennis DeYoung still sounds exactly the same, and I'm like, dude, he's like, I think 73 or 74 now, and his voice sounds the same. Like, it, he's one, and the other one that still just blows me away is Glenn Hughes.
Yeah.
Um, Especially Glenn Hughes, because everyone knows that like throughout basically the whole 80s and a large portion of his career, like he's not somebody who was careful or treated his body or anything well. Like, did lots of drugs, didn't do anything that's what you should do to keep your voice in shape, and still sounds incredible at this point. So it's just that's why I said like some of it really is just like genetics, and some people are more blessed than others. But um yeah, it's just, it also like people like Dennis DeYoung really show the importance, I think, of proper singing technique. Because I mean, yeah, he was never somebody who really like screamed or anything or sang real high. But you know, the fact that like you can really hear like how well he supported his voice and how he really sang, you know, well, a classically trained, like somebody who gives singing lessons would say, like, you can hear how much he really supported from his diaphragm and breathed properly, and nothing was nasal and it wasn't forced. And, you know, that really shows how much that stuff helps over time. So, you know, but yeah, Y&T is a good choice for that. And Wanger's a great choice. I always talk about the band Eclipse because I love them, and they're a newer band that I think more people should check out. Um, like Eric Martinson is just like the premier songwriter of melodic hard rock. I don't know how he just keeps writing all these albums, and it's like I'm like, I listen to them and I'm like, dude, how do you just keep pumping out all these amazing songs in that style? Like, it's not like something that's more like progressive or something where you're trying to be experimental. It's like, these are like kind of poppier, more to the point, like hook based rock songs. And the dude just keeps writing a million different songs, and they're all awesome. So you
A
know, I don't know
modern
how.
danger.
Yes. Oh, I love myself some Ted Poley too.
Oh yeah, his voice
He,
is just so unique.
yeah, and did you see his video that he did recently? That was like, I don't know if it was a live stream that he did with something, but it was him in his like pool house at his house, and he's wearing a like a duck like floaty thing around his waist, and he's singing all these songs like with sunglasses on and wearing this like floating duck thing for the pool. And I'm just like, I really I love people that like can do things like that, because I would just be laughing the whole time. I'm like, I couldn't wear a duck and wear some, like I couldn't do that, but like he can do that, and it's really entertaining. It's funny, he actually lives like 20 minutes from us. And a while ago, like I went to see Tokyo Motor Fest, and I met him, and you know someone introduced us, and it was like, then he's like, yeah, you have to come to one of my pool parties. And I was all ready to do that, and then like all this situation like happened, so no one can go to any parties or anything. So I'm still waiting to go to one of Ted Poley's pool parties, but after the coronavirus is over.
Sarah Teets of MindMaze, thank you so much for taking some time to catch up. Roads to Madness, at least we have that right now. And we're looking forward to you finishing everything up and getting us some more new music. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.